How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk. Guys, today we are going to give you 4 tips for working the vehicle sallyport. So whether you're dropping someone off, picking them up, we're going to give you 4 tips that we hope you find a way to apply, because these 4 tips really do relate to your safety and security in working in a sallyport area. The person that's going to be providing us those tips today for discussion is going to be none other than Russ Hamilton, the founder of Keepers of Chaos. But before I introduce him, I just want to announce my sponsors. We have American Military University. Guys, if you're looking to pursue higher education, get that degree. Guys, American Military University, they're very supportive of us on Tier Talk, more important, supportive of us in the corrections profession. So please, you guys get a chance. It's a great online school. They'll work with you. Please check out American Military University. We also have GuardianRFID.com. So from inmate tracking and cell checks to cloud-based businesses and artificial intelligence, Guardian RFID digitally transforms jails, prisons, and juvenile detention facilities of every shape and size. Visit GuardianRFID.com for more information. And don't forget, sorry guys, got the hiccups. Don't forget, Guardian RFID also has a YouTube channel where they also promote correctional content. I'm on it. Russ, William Young, Steve Menard. There's a group of us. If you guys get a chance, please check it out. And I also have a book, Inmate Manipulation Decoded. It's out on the market. There's a description, or there's a link. I was going to catch myself, but I missed it. There's a link in the description if you're interested in getting Inmate Manipulation Decoded. And hopefully sometime end of this year, beginning of next, my Correctional Daily Reader will be out there and available. I'm very proud of what I'm doing. I think it's going to be a great thing for this profession. It's going to cover a lot of different topics, but it's going to be topics that aren't normally discussed. You know, topics that relate to leadership ability and maybe some specifics related to the profession, because it does, everything's going to be applied to the profession. But having said that, it's more about deep thought discussions that I feel, if you can reference in, and it's very discussion worthy, if you will. And it's a lot of work because I got to come up with 365 different topics. But I think it's going to have some value for this profession. Now, what's up? Hey, Russ, real quick, you've been reading a piece of my Daily Reader. What do you think so far?
It's going to be an excellent book, man. It's going to, provoke a lot of thought. It's going to, put a lot of good information out there. It's going to be a book by which you could go in and operate any jail or prison in the country.
No, I don't know about that, but yeah, you went a little too far.
I know. I think that I'm not necessarily overstating it. I think that, if everyone paid attention to those things in there, the other things that maybe you're not going to address would follow.
I like that. And I heard that I have a celebrity doing my intro. His name is Russ Hamilton, the founder of Keepers of Chaos.
Yeah, none other than me.
Hey, how's Keepers of Chaos going, brother? How's everything,
Keepers of Chaos, where we hit that magic 5,000 member mark, and that's awesome. I just also want to say that we had one of our admins who had been in the hospital for a long time, and we were very concerned, Jim Hall. He's back. He's regained some of his health, and he is on the mend, so he's active again, and we're very happy about that, because, it was very worrisome to all of us at Keepers.
Yeah, and by the way, our hearts go out to Jim Hall. Fast recovery for him. He is a very big supporter of this channel, supporter of the profession, supporter of Keepers of Chaos. This guy is behind the scenes empowering us. He's lifting the people who are able to create this message. So, again, sometimes we feel like we're on the shoulders of giants. Jim Hall to us is a giant in this profession. He motivates me, inspires me to keep on doing things every day, watches our material every day, even the long ones, and maybe more than once. So having said that, I'll even dedicate this episode to Jim Hall. He's a friend, a brother, and I truly do wish him the best during this very trying time. And again, heart goes out to him. All right, Russ. This was, first off, before we start, so we're going to be talking about tips for working in a vehicle sallyport. So let me ask you a question. I always like to ask you, because this is your topic. You thought of it. Why do we need to have this discussion right now? Why is this relevant right now?
Because, if you'll just go and Google this subject, you'll see that a lot of bad things, a lot of deadly things, a lot of critical incidents tend to happen in sallyports There's a few different reasons for that. One of the things is we're comfortable in there. We feel like it's home. We feel like, once we pull in, we can drop our guard a little bit. Or when we're getting ready to go out, we're thinking about the route ahead of us and not so much what's going on right there, because we feel comfortable. We feel safe. And that's not necessarily the case.
And guys, recently I know Russ did a video on Guardian. Is it on Guardian RFID, Russ?
It's not out yet on Guardian. It will be.
No, there was a video where you broke down a sallyport video.
Yes, there was. That was a separate one from the one I recently did. That one did contain a sallyport issue in it. That was an escape. We were doing escapes.
And I think that's why this discussion is now definitely relevant to have. So, guys, we have 4 tips. Guys, remember, this is not a catch-all. So it helps us build the dialogue. If you know of any more, please hit us up, and maybe we could do another video. Obviously, giving respect to those who gave us the tip. So these 4 tips are, I think they're all Russ's. I don't think I have any input on this one. Maybe the one. Maybe the one, but not really. I don't think I have an input on this one, but it's okay. This is not my area of expertise. So let's go with the first tip, Russ. Now, Russ, I could pick these tips out in any order, right? There's no order here, Russ. I just pick them up in any order.
You do you.
What should I do first? Okay, Russ, here it is. First tip, proper search of a person in custody.
Okay, so this one naturally is huge. This is the thing, you're getting ready to take this inmate into the outside world. You have to make sure that he is 100% completely devoid of any contraband that might help him escape. It could be anything from a handcuff key to a piece of wire to, who knows what. But this is where you have to, make that extra effort. You know what? If he's got braids in, he's got to take those braids out before he goes out there. If you have the opportunity to run him through a metal detector, you're going to want to do that. Anything that pops on that initial one, if you have a walkthrough model or whatever, you're going to want to go to the handheld and completely go over every little bit of him that could possibly hide any particular item that could, help him in an escape. And it could be anything, but that only gets the metal things. You also have to make sure that you do a complete search of every other possible place that he could be hiding anything. And that is for starters.
So, guys, this is obviously a good piece of advice here, because obviously, besides this being common sense, this is where the initial threat can happen. If the person's not properly checked on the streets, in the vehicle, when they're being passed off, and that's why it should be done multiple times. Don't always take the word of the person who's giving you the inmate or the person that's in custody, because sometimes they don't do as thorough as a Chuck as you're going to do. And technically, anytime you take someone over from another entity or even another person, sometimes you have to do a strip search right away, or do whatever type of search that the facility may allow. Because I know not all facilities allow strip searches, but what I'm basically saying here is don't always take the word of someone else, because once that person is in your custody, they're your responsibility. And if they find something on that individual, you can't say, well, the local police told me they checked them, or the officer that dropped them off told me they checked them. It doesn't work, because once they come into your facility, it becomes your responsibility to check them. Would you agree with that, Russ?
Yeah, just to give you an example, when we got Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, back from the custody of San Francisco County Sheriff, he had a handcuff key on him. And, you would think that with a guy, multiple, serial killer type of guy, that wouldn't have been missed. We found it on the way back in. So even once, someone is returning custody of someone to you, you still should go through them with a fine-tooth comb and make sure, because that could have ended up with the death of an officer or someone else after all this had happened. It could be years in the future that handcuff key skitters around, the cell blocks for a while until someone really dangerous, takes it out.
Yeah, and guys, before we move forward on this, just Russ had mentioned it briefly. I just want to make sure that your facility does have boss chairs and stuff like that could also help you supplement with your effective search. Because again, if you definitely need those boss chairs, and there should be, what's it called, the tower too, they kind of walk through a tower, but then they also go through everything has a fail safe. I mean, that's pretty much it. You get the person walking through the tower, but then they still do the boss chair. And this way, God forbid, if they somehow make it with contraband, you definitely have exhausted every effort, to make sure they don't have it. I mean, sometimes machines could be faulty, or sometimes these people in custody could be very inventive. But having said that, if you ever do discover something on that person, Russ, before we move over to the next thing, what should be done?
Well, that's the point at which you want to make sure if they're still in restraints, you're not going to remove those restraints. If they're not in restraints, you're going to put them into restraints, and then you're going to get a supervisor there, and you're going to then start exhausting whatever the list of remedies and measures are on whatever your procedure is. And there's too many for me to go through what all the potentials are. It could even be to the point, I know one time we had to go so far as to actually get a search warrant because of what was secreted in someone's special cavity. And so it just all depends. But what you don't want to do is you don't want to take a chance on letting that piece of contraband into there. And so you have to start being, proactive and preemptive in whatever your approach is.
Right, guys, no matter what the contraband is, even if it may not appear to be life-threatening, it's still, if it makes it in, it still shows a weakness in the system. Oh, but Ganji, it was just a watch. It doesn't matter. It shouldn't have gotten in. It shouldn't have made it in. So a watch should be taken just as seriously as a weapon in some cases. Because, again, if a watch can make it in, a weapon could easily make it in. I don't give a shit how small it is or how superficial it is. You got to make sure the staff knows that even no matter how small it is, it still poses a threat because it could show a vulnerability in the system. So again, watch, weapon, if a watch can get in, so can a weapon, right, Russ?
Absolutely. There's no sense in taking that chance.
Yep. And so this is an interesting one, Russ, because in the video that you reviewed recently on Guardian RFID, this is the one area I thought that they were definitely lacking on, which to me, from my perspective, was the first thing I noticed right off the bat. First thing I asked. I don't think the person had backup when the person was coming out of the vehicle. What's your thoughts on having backup?
Yeah, it's essential to, either have backup or the proper number of people to escort that person. If you're bringing someone back from court and that person is already a lifer and they're also facing an additional life sentence, you're not going to want to just, haphazardly just get them out of the vehicle and ho-hum them into your facility. Additionally, even if you're up on what their case is, there could be some other thing that's causing this person to act out. So what you want to do at the very minimum with a lifer, you're going to want a 2-on-1 presence, right? When you notify that sallyport that you're coming in, maybe you're going to want to have extra backup show there, especially if you're getting that person out in the sallyport and then taking them into the facility. We were fortunate enough. We had facilities where a lot of our sallyports, we could drive into the sallyport and then on beyond into the actual secure perimeter. But some places simply don't have that. So just be aware, this person, that may be their only chance to stage an escape, and they may be willing to go for broke. So don't think that it's not going to happen just because you made it home all nice and safe and now you're in the sallyport.
Yeah, I want to add something that's with the backup. Maybe I can make this my own because I'm trying to think of where I can input something. I actually have an idea on this, and tell me if you agree with me, Russ. So when you have the backup, you should definitely always have the backup there when you're going to get that inmate out. And we're going to explain a little bit of some of the reasons why in the next one when it comes to certain things that could be on your person or whatever it is. But one of the good things about having backup on site is when you go into the sallyport in the vehicle to get ready to take the inmate out or even pick the inmate up, whatever the case may be, they should make sure everything's secured and give you the okay we can get the inmate out. I mean, the last thing you want to do is, get the inmate out, let's say, and all of a sudden the back is still open or one of the doors are unlocked inside the sallyport area. So it's always good to make sure that the area is secured. You get okay, we're good to go. And now if the inmate takes off, where can they go? I've seen so many videos where they let the inmate out before the garage door has fully closed, or, the one door the officer was just doing a smoke break is wide open and they're smoking, and the inmate goes right out that door. So it would be good to have someone on scene who's familiar with that says, okay, everything's good, we're secured, good, you can bring them out, and treat it a little bit more controlled. What's your thought on that, Russ? Is that a good suggestion from me, or did I go a little off course?
No, it's good. You should have, at least that mental checklist in your mind about what we're about to do. We're about to, bring this inmate out. We're about to, stage him at the door going into the jail or the facility or whatever it is. And so you should be thinking about, okay, all the doors are closed, right? Maybe you should, be radioing into, whoever has control of those doors and letting them know, hey, we got one under escort from the sallyport into intake, so that they're aware, hey, I shouldn't be messing around with any doors right now. I shouldn't be letting, some other officer that's out there in a vehicle come on in, because it's simply not safe to do so. We should be thinking about what we're doing as we're doing it, going through the proper motions, the proper procedure, and, protecting the public.
Yeah, and guys, again, this is just, I think it's food for thought, because I have seen videos where it wasn't secured. They let the person out, and the prisoner is actually more aware of the environment and goes right, and literally in some cases slides right under the door, catches it right at that last moment. So don't anticipate, don't get impatient. Wait for one area to secure before you go to open up another area. I mean, sometimes we tend to get patient. I mean, how many times impatient? Sometimes, I've seen officers squeeze through a closing gate because they want to get out on time, and it's like, yo, just be patient. It will open again. But in the meantime, again, you're dropping that person off or picking them up. Make sure the areas are secured before that inmate gets into that intake area or the vehicle sallyport. Okay, so this is a good one, Russ. The being cognizant of weapons and keys in the sallyport area or on one's person.
Okay, so in starting with this, let's talk about the keys first of all. If the prisoner does not have the keys, he's not going to be able to get into that vehicle, and he's not going to be able to go anywhere. That's why the keys that operate that vehicle should not be in that sallyport unless that inmate, that prisoner, that person in custody is already ensconced and secure in that vehicle. And you say, well, how do you do that? Well, ideally, the things that open the cages and open the places to lock would be on a separate key ring that you could join together or put together once you're willing to bring those keys out of whatever secure area they're in. Now, I know I don't see very many places doing that, but that's the smart move. Too many times, the officer simply has them on his belt and he's walking around. If he gets overpowered, the vehicle is lost. That's essentially it. When we talk about the weapons, okay, in a lot of these sallyports, there are lock boxes, for the firearms and stuff. Ideally, those should also be inside a man port that only can be opened from control, but that's often not the case either. Also, not often the case is a lot of these places don't have the crash barriers that can come up out of the ground, although that's even more ideal because it stops that attempt at trying to, ram a vehicle through there. So those are the things that I think about. And if you see any of these times where people in custody have got a hold of the officer's weapon, it's tragic. It almost always has tragic consequences for somebody, be it the person in custody, be it the officer, be it someone out there in the public. That's not what we want to allow happen. And the easy way to get around that is, and the person in custody, the prisoner in custody, should always be secured in the vehicle before the keys come out and before the weapons come out.
Yeah, and then I know in some cases what they'll do is before they, especially if they're dropping someone off, before they let the inmate come out or the prisoner come out, the person in custody, they'll drop their weapons and everything off first. And then they have the backup there. So the presence of 2-to-1 or 3-to-1, or in some cases 4-to-5-to-1, if you can afford that, usually should be enough. And again, if you have the area that's secured, even if the inmate runs off or the prisoner, where are they gonna go to? But again, the presence of the extra people truly does deter, but it also allows us to basically, if we have tools to de-escalate, we can hand those off because now we have a presence of 4 or 5 people that will be able to help us handle that individual without them, taking something from us that puts the odds in their favor. So again, and again, that's just having the backup, having people there, and hopefully the inmate will see the five or the presence of more people, and it will deter them from being foolish. But I will tell you right now, and Russ saw it in the video we did recently, or Russ did recently, is sometimes by you just being sloppy and reaching over to take the guy out of his seatbelt or whatever it is, and the gun gets into their vicinity or whatever, they may just be impulsive and take it. You don't know, and it does happen. We've seen it. We're not discussing stuff that doesn't happen, and you figure it'd be 101, but sometimes it's not. So again, when you're taking that inmate out, that you should not have anything where they can grab or put the odds into their favors. That's why the backup is needed, because that's going to complement what the de-escalation tools that could be used against you when you go to take that inmate. I mean, the same thing, I know off topic, but same thing as when you're doing a hospital escort and you have the inmate in the room. I mean, usually you have one officer outside the room armed with maybe the other officer's weapon in a secured box, when they take the trip. But the officer that's in that room should not have their weapon or nothing where the inmate can reach. The officer on the side that's at a distance, they can have their weapon, but they never go in that room. They stand right on the outside and always create a distance between themselves and the inmate. The officer in the room should not be walking around with their gun around that bed. That should be given back over to the officer who will secure that in a box, have it on them, and then they keep themselves a good distance away from the inmate. So I kind of see that as the same, it's sort of the same, especially because the vehicle is more close. Would you agree? Pass it off and you have the presence in numbers?
Yeah, it all just comes back to that. You know what? Is it a hassle? Is it an inconvenience? Yeah, but it would stop so many things if, everybody was a little more ready and willing to put procedures in place that would stop this nonsense before it happens. So it's just, take that extra 2 or 3 minutes that it takes and write those policies, write those procedures in a way that's going to make it more difficult, if not impossible, for an inmate to make a break from custody from that particular point.
Yeah. And guys, again, this could fall also into complacent habits. So again, ultimately, just don't be complacent. You be cognizant of what's on your hip, what stuff you have that could be used against you if someone else gets it. It's a good one too. Last one, tip number 4. Person
I
in
have a
custody.
bonus one coming up too.
All right, so that's if you stay for the 5th one. But I have person in custody must be under constant observation and in restraints while in the sallyport.
Okay, so you would think that would make perfect sense, right? And it does, because if they are always in restraints and they are under constant and direct observation, then there's a whole lot less they can do. The problem is that, people get complacent. They decide to, slack a little bit. Maybe they take the person in custody out there and, place him or her into restraints out there and put them in a position where they can capitalize on what's going on in that sallyport. Or they're really lazy and they're just deciding, hey, you know what? Let's have the crew come out, the person in custody inmate crew, and have them sweep the sallyport out. I mean, after all, these guys are, like low level, low risk guys, right? Well, who knows what they're going to do for a friend or a pal of theirs? Are they going to potentially plant things out there, handcuff keys, shanks, things like that might help someone in escape? Are they going to be allowed to, clean out that car and place something in there? Don't fall into that, the inmates or the person in custody has to do all the work. Don't let them into that sallyport, especially without restraints on and without constant and direct supervision. The only person that should be in that sallyport that's an inmate or a person in custody is someone who's going to be exiting that sallyport in a secure vehicle.
Yeah, and guys, anytime an inmate's in restraints, they should be under observation anyway. So I mean that's an easy one too. But having said that, Russ, I mean definitely 4 vital tips. But you said you have a bonus one because I don't know anything about this bonus one. Is it Tier Talk approved?
It's Tier Talk approved, and this one is really simple. And yet I've seen quite a few cases, read quite a few cases where this would have saved lives or at least saved the day. You know, when you stop and you get to wherever you're going, be it your home sallyport where you feel safe inside there, or you're taking a guy out to medical or a court, and you're ready to get him out, don't get him out of the vehicle until they show you the restraints so you can visually inspect that those restraints are okay. You know, whether it's the leg irons or if it's a Martin chain or if it's waist restraints or whatever it is, look to make sure that it looks like it's okay. Then once you get them out, you're going to check all those things by feel all over again and make sure that they're in working order. Because, you know, at the point where they're willing to try and escape is the point where they've already jacked around with those things. And it's just going to be that instant where you open the door that they're going to attack you or they're going to bolt. And, you know, like I say, I've read dozens of these cases where it's been just like that, and nobody bothered to check those.
Make sure everything is double locked.
That too.
Yeah,
you know, but you have to, the main thing though is you have to check it visually before you even open that door.
I thought it was a good topic, Russ. Any thoughts in closing?
Yeah, you know, you guys, whether you've been doing these transports for years or whether you're brand new to this, you know, take it to heed. Do what I've said many times, just play that what if game. What if you were an inmate? What if you had no regard for human life? What if you had no worries about, you know, risking your life to break free and do something heinous? You know, how would you do it? How would you accomplish it? And then, you know, build your defenses around those things. And so that's what I've got to tell you. I've seen and heard of too many officers getting killed in and around sallyports. And so that's why we decided to bring these little tips to you. There's many, many more things that you should be aware of and that you should implement and look at. But these are just a few to spark that conversation, to, you know, spark that that mental capacity, and to make sure that you truly are staying safe.
Yeah, and guys, just as I said, like, you know, in closing, a lot of these things are really just habits we may get complacent in. So this is just a reminder to just kind of do what you're supposed to do. Even, you know, with not having the, you know, like complacent habits with like not having the appropriate people in the vehicle sallyport area when you're letting the inmate out. I mean, there are times where it's like, oh, it's just the vendor, or oh, it's just the civilian who's trying to exit. No, it doesn't matter. Those vehicle intake areas should really have very limited traffic. You know, if people are exiting and entering the facility, they shouldn't be doing it that way. Not for normal traffic. For the intake, it should be strictly, you know, the drop off of the inmate area, because if you have too many people in that area, that's a lot to control. So having said that, just kind of be awake. You know, make sure you know what you're doing. Make sure you follow these measures that we mentioned. And to be honest with you, nothing's fail-proof. But having said that, you don't want to be the excuse for an inmate to kind of, you know, take off and you know, I mean, these foolish mistakes I saw in Russ's video, the one that he when he broke down the video at the video, it's like, it's not even a Monday Night Quarterback video. It's just, guys, you have to, when we do these videos, you have to show people the right way, because it's not that you want to use this person as a scapegoat, but they're probably not the only one doing it that way. That's the scary thing, you know. So we have to learn from those mistakes, from those failures, because if we don't, we'll keep on making them. So that's the always something you have to be on point with. As always, guys, the show is Tier Talk. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. Stay safe.